Hi, this is Roger Bossy with the Serial City Lions and the Blind Winter Camp for the Blind, and I'm here today with Glen Alday, who is one of our Lions and has first-hand experience with the Outdoor Education Center at Clear Lake Camp, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the early history of the camp and what it was used for. Go ahead, Glen. Don't.
I'm Glen Alday, and I am a former Battle Creek public school teacher, and I used to take classes, sixth grade classes, out at Clear Lake Camp when I was a sixth grade teacher. My first experience with Clear Lake Camp was 1953, and at that time I was taking the class out to Clear Lake Camp my first year as a teacher, and at that time the U.S. Coast Guard had a active Coast Guard station at Clear Lake, and one of the activities for our fifth and sixth graders at Battle Creek Public Schools was to go to Clear Lake Camp and spend a week. And so I got to go the very first week when Clear Lake Camp did not have any dormitories. However, they did get money in the later years for the dormitories, which they now have, which is much superior to what it was at that time. And so my first encounter with Clear Lake Camp was to see these young recruits marching at the football field at Battle Creek Central. And Battle Creek at that time was loaded with service people. We had a place called Fort Custer, which was loaded with soldiers. They had many soldiers at the Fort Custer, and they used to come into town and spend a lot of time, especially on weekends. Well, of all things, a Coast Guard training station was set up at Clear Lake Camp. And lo and behold, you would see hundreds and hundreds of soldiers, and you would also, once in a while, you would see a Coast Guardman, because they were a completely different uniform. But in any case, the young recruits marched at halftime as entertainment for the football game that would be going on that afternoon or evening. So that was my first encounter with seeing anything to do with Clear Lake Camp. I became a Battle Creek public school teacher, sixth grade, and this was in 1953, I think I decided. And when we would go, we were asked to go to Clear Lake Camp as a fifth or sixth grade class. And I went with a sixth grade class my first year I was with Battle Creek, and that's when we did not have the wings at the Clear Lake Camp. Students slept in the dining hall and also the rec room. The dining room, and I guess it would be the dining room, but the area in front of Clear Lake Camp was a flat area right where the beach is now. And that beach was created by digging the but the basement underneath what we call the lodge nowadays. So anyway, that was the first experience I had, was seeing the students, the young Coast Guard cadet people that actually had dug the ground to make the parade ground.
Oh, okay.
But when you would take your class to Clear Lake Camp, before you would go to Clear Lake Camp, a counselor would come to your classroom and they would tell you all the things you needed, that in order to get them interested in the camp, we had students that would be involved in what we call table hopping. They would be getting the food from the kitchen and taking it to the table where the individual students were sitting. And then besides that, we had other people that made fires. When we were at camp, we did a lot of outdoor activity primarily. So we had what we called fire makers. We also had buglers, and each dorm at that time, we had a boy bugler and a girl bugler. So they would play taps in the evening for going to bed, and then reveille in the morning. So then we also had a class flag that we created back at the classroom in Verona School. And when we were out on activities, we had rest time after lunchtime. And at rest time, you had 1 hour, and at that time, the kids were supposed to write down activities that they had done that day. That diary that they made would be used for their ticket to get into the supper meal. And yes, at the camp, one of the big activities we had was a snipe hunt. Well, I knew what a snipe hunt was, and most of the sixth graders did not know, but the Boy Scouts in my class pretty much knew what it was. So one of the activities we had at Clear Lake Camp, we would have a snipe hunt, and there was a fence along the back of the camp, and the kids that did not know what a snipe was, they would have a big paper bag that we would get from a little local grocery store at the corner out by Clear Lake Camp. And they would go out there, and this was after supper. After supper then, I would take them out, station them along the fence so that they each had a spot. And the kids that knew what a snipe was, their job was to go out and scare the snipe to the point where the kids they had their paper bags, and they were all along this fence area. So the snipe chasers would go out and try to pretend they were chasing snipe towards the kids that were stationed along this fence. And so the kids that knew what a snipe was usually were just Boy Scouts. We really played it up big time about when we were out after supper and it was not yet dark. They would be out, and we were out there hollering and rattling, running and everything. But then we had the bugle blow. It was time to come back to the lodge, and each kid brought back his paper bag, and we met in the rec room, and we had a big old wire cage that we'd found someplace. So we're all sitting around this rec room, and we're all gonna dump their snipe that they had caught. And anyway, in comes the hunters, and the hunters, meanwhile, we had two or three that had a rock in their bag. Those are hunters that would drop their rock on the floor, and finally, I guess the non-snipe hunters finally learned that they had been taken out and just dropped along this fence. And that was one of the big things that my kids always did from my room, because I knew what a snipe hunt was. But I always liked to go to this place where the bird school was and take my kids there. And many times the school was actually being actively used at that time. Like I said, some of the kids at the school rode horses, many of them rode bikes. Anyway, so the kids had lots to do out there, and we enjoyed it very much. And I liked it as a classroom teacher because I got to see the kids in an activity other than the actual classroom. But so the kids, meanwhile, they had a lot of activities that you would never have in an actual classroom setting.
Especially kids that lived in the city.
Exactly.
So,
and I always enjoyed it. And the kids, you never had any discipline problems out there because they loved it. They loved being outdoors all the time. And it's so different now than what it used to be. But times change.
that's right.
At the camp itself, later on, they drew a map, and it was in the rec room, and it showed a timeline of the different activities, of the different things that the camp had been involved in before it became a school camp. And it's still out there today.
Now,
The first time I went there as a high school junior was 1943.
Okay.
But no, I did not go as a student. I went later after my military experience as a teacher at Verona School in the sixth grade. Grade. It was the cadet training place for Clear Lake Camp boots that were in Clear Lake. They used to have two great big, I use the word, the boats that the sailors used to sit on each side of a big long boat with an oar, and they would be lifeboats. So they used to row these boats around Clear Lake Camp. And there were two big poles right out in front of the swimming area where they had these big old not campgrounds, where they had the big lifeboats tied to those big posts there.
Oh, okay.
But that's what the cadets did when they were out there. They learned to operate the old
lifeboats.
Lifeboats.
Wow.
But I did not go there. When I was there visiting, I saw the lifeboats in 1943. But when I was a student or teacher, we did not have the lifeboats out there. But we did have individual rowboats. And the kids got to take rowboats out in the little secluded area where they could be seen all the time. And I don't, anyway.
Well, that's pretty cool, Glen.
Just a wonderful activity. They also got to go fishing. And one place they went was that camp,
Wesley Woods?
Wesley Woods was a place where we visited because they used to band birds over there. And so that was what our bird activity was, to band birds. And just a wonderful outdoor experience. And most of the time we never got rained out, but we got to, and was given to the Battle Creek Public Schools.
Okay.
And who still now have it. And as you know, the Present Day Lions Club has done activity out there helping. with the camp itself.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's
but a wonderful, wonderful experience for the kids when they were in the 5th and 6th grade. They went 1 year as a 5th grader, they went 1 year as a 6th grader, and they had different activities for each year they were there.
all right.
But I enjoyed going out as a serial city lion and seeing the activities that we had done in the past. I remember in the basement there had been a big old telephone pole, and kids were whittling away on that, trying to make a big totem pole, and kids worked on year after year, and summer. Yeah, it was right down in the basement, and it was long enough that I don't know, you could have 8 or 10 kids sitting on the thing, whittling away to try to make faces and
Right.
stuff on the
Oh,
camp.
that's cool. That's cool.
But that's disappeared, and
Well, Glenn, thanks so much. I appreciate you relating your experiences with the camp, and I think the campers will be interested to hear what used to happen at the camp back in the day. So I appreciate it very much, and thanks again.
You're welcome.